So we're continuing through the letter to the Romans in our first reading today. And so we talk about the law, and St. Paul talks about the difference between the law and faith, and he talks about the works of the law. Actually 8 times in his writings, twice here in Romans, and 6 times in the letter to the Galatians. And there have been some, over the course of the centuries, some question about what exactly he means by this, but the consensus for the most part today is that he's talking not about, well, you don't have to follow the 10 Commandments in order to be saved, but rather, it's when they're talking about the works of the law, they're talking about the ceremonial law and, the external things like the purity laws and circumcisions. Certainly, St. Paul in Galatians and Romans is talking about circumcision and about those things, but not the moral law as such in terms of like the 10 Commandments. So with this he's saying, you don't have to be Jewish in order to be saved. And he's saying, it's not these outward things that bring about our salvation, but it's God's grace that justifies us. It's not our works that justify us. Now, what does justification mean? Being justified doesn't mean that our text goes to the right margin clearly and straight. No response. Okay, well, in any case, justification means being made in right relationship with God. It's all about relationship. When does this happen to us in a sacramental way? At baptism. At baptism. Where God pours out His grace into our lives, we are made His beloved sons and daughters. We're washed clean of our original sin and all other sins at that moment. And we are made in right relationship with God. And that then is something that is a free gift from Almighty God, not something that we can do on our own. No matter how hard you try, you cannot baptize yourself. You always need someone else that will pour the water and say the words. It is gift from Almighty God. Now, there of course is a place for works, and we see this throughout other places in the New Testament. But what St. Paul is talking about is he's trying to distinguish and saying, you don't have to be Jewish to be Christian. He says, what do we need? We need faith. We need to have that interior disposition where we are giving ourselves over to Almighty God. That opens us to God's grace and movement in our lives. Now, faith isn't just an intellectual assent, though. It isn't just an interior thing. Faith leads to works. Faith is seen by what we do. Faith requires us to say, okay, I'm not going to just break any of the laws of Almighty God because I believe in Him. But faith is something that says, not just I believe in God, but I placed my life in God's hands. That there's action that is involved in this. So St. Paul talks about these things. He says, okay, remember, there's no occasion for boasting that you are a Christian. You can't go, not that we'd go around, hey, I'm a Christian and you're not. But rather, he says, this is all gift from Almighty God. We have to receive it. We have to be open to it. We have to cooperate with it. And that's where the works come in, is in our sanctification, where we continue to grow in the life of faith so that we can be with God forever in heaven. But the initial gift, the grace, is all God. Is all God. May we recognize this incredible gift that God has given to us. In the gospel, at some point, Jesus says, "Blessed are your eyes, for they have seen what kings and prophets have longed to see, and your ears to hear what so many have longed to hear." So many people long to see and hear and experience what we take for granted. Almighty God coming into our midst in the Eucharist, that He's made us in right relationship with Him by baptism, that when we sin and mess up, we don't have to go and get a lamb or a bull or to go and bring it to a temple and slaughter it, in somewhere in some distant country in order for us to be made in right relationship with God. All we have to do is go to confession, right? That these gifts that God has given to us, He's handed us. He says, I am right here in your midst. Do you not see my gifts that are poured out upon you? May we truly recognize these gifts, the incredible humility of Almighty God and the generosity of Almighty God to place these things at our fingertips so that we can know God, so that we can grow in our relationship with Him here, so that we can be with Him forever.